All right, so you're getting into beekeeping, and let's be honest, opening up a hive for the very first time, it can be pretty intimidating. But what if you had a clear roadmap for that whole critical first year? Well, that's exactly what we're going to build today. We're going to turn that apprehension into some real solid confidence, step by step.
So here's the plan. First, we're going to talk about prepping for inspection so everything goes super smooth. Then we'll dive right in and get hands-on with the hive. After that, we'll learn how to actually read the story the bees are telling us on the comb. Then we'll zoom out and see how our job changes with the seasons. And finally, we'll talk about the one simple tool that brings it all together, your own beekeeping journal.
Okay, let's kick things off with preparation. Your confidence as a beekeeper really starts before you even get near the hive. Seriously, just getting organized is the number one thing you can do to keep things calm for you and for your bees. You can think of this as your pre-flight check, right? First thing, get your tools all in one spot. Trust me, you don't want to be fumbling around looking for your hive tool with your gloves on. Second, if you need anything like feed or extra boxes, have them ready to go before you crack open that hive. And third, and this is a big one, get good with your smoker. A classic rookie mistake is having it go out right in the middle of an inspection. Here's a little tip. Pack your fuel kind of loose at the bottom and then tighter on top. That'll help keep it smoldering. Now, before you even think about opening the hive, just watch. Take a second. You'll pretty quickly see what looks like a bee highway. It's the main flight path they're using to get in and out. Your job? Stand on the opposite side. It's that simple. And here's why. If you're standing in their way, the forges are going to start bumping into you. Now, they're not trying to be aggressive, but if you move and accidentally pinch one, well, that can trigger a whole defensive response you just don't need. So the rule is easy. Respect their space. All right, we're all prepped. It's time for the main event, your first real hive inspection. Look, mastering this is probably the single most important hands-on skill you're going to develop as a beekeeper. This is where it all happens. When it comes to handling the frames, there are basically 3 golden rules. Rule number 1, let the sun be your flashlight. Stand so it's coming over your shoulder, and it'll light up the inside of all those little cells perfectly. Number 2, always keep the frames over the hive while you're working. Why? Because if the queen happens to take a tumble, she'll land safely back inside, not lost in the grass somewhere. And finally, rule number 3, hold those frames vertically, nice and straight. If you tilt them, you can spill fresh nectar and, even worse, cause a bunch of the young bees to fall right off the comb. So the big question is, how do you get that first frame out without creating a total panic? The secret is simple. You have to create some space. You're not going to start with the frame right up against the wall. Instead, start with the second frame in. Use your hive tool to gently break that propolis seal, then just kind of nudge it and the frames next to it away from the wall. See? Now you've got a gap. This lets you lift that first frame straight up and you avoid rolling the bees. That's what we call it when you accidentally squish them against the hive wall. That will definitely make them angry. Once that first one is out and set aside, you've got plenty of room to work. Okay, so you've got the hang of handling frames. Now for the really cool part, learning how to read them. This is the moment you stop being just a behavior and become a true beekeeper. You're basically learning to read the story that the colony is writing for you, right there on the comb. And the most important chapter of that story is the brood pattern. Look, when you're just starting out, it's easy to get obsessed with finding the queen herself. But experienced beekeepers, they know it's way more important to find evidence of a good queen. And what's that evidence? A beautiful, solid, compact pattern of brood. And here's what we're talking about side by side. On the left, that's the dream. A solid wall of capped brood. It's compact, almost no empty cells. That tells you your queen is healthy and laying like a champ. But on the right, that's what we call a shotgun pattern. See all those scattered empty cells? That's a huge red flag. It could mean there's a disease, or maybe your queen is starting to fail, but whatever it is, it's a clear signal that you need to figure out what's going on. So in a healthy hive, you're going to see brood in all its different stages. Think about the timing. A bee is an egg for 3 days, a larva for 6 days, and a capped pupa for 12. That creates this natural 1 to 2 to 4 ratio. Now, you don't need to get out a calculator or anything. The point is just to see a good mix of all 3 stages. When you see that, you know your queen has been laying consistently and your colony has a steady stream of new workers on the way. This is where you get to play detective. By seeing what's there and what's not there, you can figure out what's been happening. For instance, if you see larvae but no fresh eggs,
That tells you that you probably lost your queen sometime in the last 3 days. What if you see eggs and capped brood, but no larvae in between? That points to a break in the egg-laying cycle, which usually means a new queen just got started. The comb is basically a timeline of everything that's been going on with your queen.
Okay, let's zoom out for a minute. We've been looking at a single frame, but now let's look at the whole year. You see, being a really good beekeeper is all about adapting what you do to the natural rhythm of the seasons. Every season has its own main goal, right? In spring, it's all about managing that population explosion and trying to prevent swarms. In the summer, we're focused on the honey flow, but also dealing with the dearth when things dry up. Fall is all about pest control and getting the hive ready for winter. And winter, your job is mostly to leave them alone and just make sure they have enough food. So in the spring, your #1 job is swarm prevention. And there's a key number to remember: 75%. As soon as the bees have built out the comb on about 3/4 of the frames in a box, it is time to add another box on top. Don't wait. Because if they run out of space, their natural instinct is to swarm, to split the colony in half and leave. By staying one step ahead of them, you give them room to grow up instead of out, and they'll fill that new space with honey. Then comes the heat of summer, and you can run into something called a dearth. That's when all the flowers dry up and there's not much nectar out there. The bees can actually start to run out of food during this time, so be careful not to take all their honey. They also need a ton of water to help cool the hive. And if you don't give them a safe place to get it, like a bird bath with some rocks in it so they don't drown, they will find one. And yeah, it'll probably be your neighbor's swimming pool. All right, as we head into fall, everything shifts to one goal: winter survival. And this checklist is absolutely critical. First, you want to consolidate their space by taking off any empty honey boxes. A smaller home is way easier for them to keep warm. Next, check their food stores. They need at least 45 pounds of honey to make it. This is also when you treat for nasty varroa mites, but make sure you do it after you've harvested any honey you want to keep. And lastly, get those mouse guards on before it gets cold. You don't want a mouse moving into their nice warm hive for the winter. And that brings us to winter. And you know what your main job is? It's simple. Leave them alone. That's it. They form this tight little ball called a cluster to stay warm. And if you open the hive and break that cluster, it can literally kill them. The only thing you should be doing is checking on their food every now and then. You can do a quick peek under the lid. If you see bees right up at the top, they're probably out of food. An even easier way is to just tilt the hive from the back. If it feels heavy, they're probably doing just fine. Okay, let's wrap up with what might be the single most powerful tool you have for becoming a better beekeeper: a journal. Seriously, this is how you take all those little observations you make and turn them into real, hard-earned wisdom. So what should you even write down? Well, the obvious stuff: what you saw, the state of the brood, their food stores, any queen cells, and what you did, like adding a super or treating for mites. But here's the real game changer, the thing that makes a huge difference. Write down what's in bloom, what flowers are out in your neighborhood. Because over the years, that journal becomes your personal guide. It connects all the dots between what's happening in your local environment and what's happening inside that hive. And here is the perfect example of that power in action. The beekeeper from our source material shared this little gem. He knows that when the forsythia starts to bloom in his neighborhood, swarm season is right around the corner. Now, the funny thing is, bees don't even really forage on forsythia. But he's learned from his journal that it's a perfect natural signal. So without even cracking open a hive, he knows, okay, it's time to get my swarm gear ready. He's learned to read the calendar of the world around him. When you get right down to it, your bees are talking to you all the time. They're telling you a story on every single frame, with every flight, and with the rhythm of the entire year. And the real journey, the journey from being a new beekeeper to a seasoned one, it isn't about managing a box of bugs. It's about learning how to listen to their story.